Alright, so welcome back. It's been a long time since I made the first video, and I've had a lot of interruptions, but I've also got a lot of progress done. So, if you haven't seen the first video, I'm working on using marching cubes to create a voxel-based game that should look nothing like voxels in the end, and it's going to be a whole bunch of other features I'm working on. But so, right after I finished that video, I got to work on trying to add colors in the game, and this broke the game in a bunch of ways. This is just one of the many. But so the issue I was having is that the colors were kind of washy because so in Unity, when you set vertex colors, it interpolates the color value for each triangle. And so as you can see here, if you notice, the barrier between two triangles would have this very almost brush effect applied to it that would make it look gross and unclean. And also, as you can see here, I'm just having general lag because I'm rendering a lot of chunks at once, but I addressed that. And so then the next step was to get rid of this, and so I tried using like step functions and stuff like that and trying to quantize those color values down in like a shader. And as you can see, this didn't really work. This resulted in banding because the problem is that, say, I have multiple colors between some two colors I want to have, and so as I'm interpolating between the colors, the step function is just applying the step. And so if I have two colors that I want to border each other and these two colors are very far apart in the spectrum, then I'm always going to get banding. And so I solved this by actually just using all the detached faces. So beforehand, each vertex had a different color, and that's why the triangles had these odd colors. But then afterhand, what I did is I just set each of the vertexes to be the same color as its shared triangle, because these triangles are detached anyway. I'm not sharing vertexes, and that's why it gives you this triangle look to it. And so I figured that I just set all the colors anyway because I don't need to interpolate values. But one issue I was getting is that if you notice that triangle up in the top center there, that is kind of detached, or it kind of looks like it's not a part of the other materials here. I actually addressed that by checking the surrounding triangles to make sure that it would be like part of a material, because in the real world, say this was some type of stone and this was another type of stone, you wouldn't really see this. This looks very bad, and it shows it's an artifact of the game being made out of triangles essentially. And so then I solved this as well, but this brought back the banding, but then I adjusted that and corrected for that, like I said, by just checking the nearby triangles. And so then I actually reverted the game a little in a couple ways. So I went to a larger noise scale, but what I tried to do is I tried to calculate the normals of the faces on my own, because this would save me computationally, because like I said, the triangles are all detached. I'm not sharing any vertices here on my mesh, and so there's no need to calculate the normal for every triangle, or for every vertex, because the normals of each triangle vertex are going to be the same for that triangle. And so I had a lot of problems getting this right, and there's a lot of frustrating mistakes in just like messing up a simple equation and stuff like that. But then after I was finished, I was able to move on to looking at the terrain from a more holistic view and really work on the noise. And so this clip shows the noise pretty well. And actually, before I got to the noise, I worked on just 3D noise in general. And so one thing you can see here is that I am loading an incredibly large amount of chunks, and I'm doing this all very smoothly at runtime. And as you can see, there's no lag compared to the other videos where there was tons of lag. And so the reason why is I'm using asynchronous code here. So it's not technically asynchronous because it's still happening in the loop, but what it is it's called a coroutine. And so the way it works is I can pass a function onto the next loop instead of having to run the function to completion. And so basically what I've been doing is on every chunk update, I'm calculating how many chunks need to be loaded, but I'm only ever loading one chunk per frame. And so one chunk only takes me a couple milliseconds, I believe about 13 milliseconds. And so it's unnoticeable in the frame, in each frame. And that's why I can just load an incredibly large amount of chunks. And yeah, this is just raw 3D noise. This isn't like obviously a terrain really, but it just showed the power of the application, and it's pretty cool. because it really is such a sizable amount of like triangles being loaded here, and it's very smooth. So next up, I applied more like a terrain noise level to it, and I also caved in and added some post-processing just to make it look cool. And so, yeah, this is the noise setup I currently have. I haven't really changed it much, but it's a bunch of overlaid noise, a couple biomes, and yeah, I really like it. I also made a compute shader for this. As you can see, it looks really detailed, really complex. There's a couple parts to it that are unfortunately overhangs, or like not even overhangs, like floating bits. But overall, the overhangs do look really amazing, and that's what I was really going for. It's just very, very weird terrain, and I think I've accomplished this because there's very few actual floating parts, but when they are, they're pretty noticeable. But for the most part, there's just some crazy overhangs in the code, and so I also added a destructible system. And so now, because it's a voxel mesh, this is what I was really hoping for, is you can destruct the environment. And so I was like, showcase that right there. And yeah, the destruction is very satisfying. I mean, like, obviously it's not going to look like that in game, but just the ability to deform the mesh like this, it gives it such a good feel and such an amazing like just ability to do this with the marching cubes algorithm. And so then next up, I wanted to add vegetation because the world was looking a little sparse without it. So I got to work on these plants, and I used the same voxel marching cubes algorithm for them, so I can destruct these as well. And yeah, this is just a simple, like, I don't plan on any of these models being the final version, but this plant is actually entirely function based, so I didn't model this plant at all. It's simply a sphere function on top of like a line. And so, yeah, I mean, this is obviously not how I plan it to be. I plan to probably have to make my own custom editor that'll kind of voxelize, or I guess turn a model into an isometric space. But when I do that, it'll be really easy to just custom my own plants in Blender, put them in here, and then they're fully destructible. And yeah, as you can see, there's some bits hanging there. That's a problem I need to address in the game, where basically I should probably remove any values that are smaller than a certain threshold. And so then next up, I just stuck those in. Not really a big change to the game, but I also had to add spawning spaces for them because I needed to know where to spawn them, and that was one of the reasons why I made manually calculated the normals for each face. So as you can see, I manually calculated the normals, and then that allowed me to pass back spawning data from the marching algorithm. And when I got that data back, like just the normal of the face and the center of the face, then I could just like, choose to spawn a plant given a random number. And yeah, that's what you're seeing here. And so then I added a couple more plant types, but I don't show them in this video, but they're just generic plant models that I created, like bushes and stuff. And so then next up, I just added more post-processing back, and I also gave the player some skis. And so this was interesting, actually. I really toyed around with having this be like the final game because I really like the idea of the players skiing around the environment. And yeah, I'm kind of stuck here, but it was just really cool because the flow of the game feels really cool in this such a surreal world with these skis, and I like the idea, but I ended up removing them. But as you can see here, the world just looks so amazing with all this post-processing and everything. And this is like without good colors. These colors are horrible. The plant models are horrible. But the overall like appearance of the game and the sizes and scales of the world really make it look pretty cool, I think. And so next up, I wanted to have monsters. And this is obviously going to be a central part of the game. I want the player to fight mobs, and I want them to be big. And so I first added inverse kinematics, because that's obviously an important step. And so this is a lot of trial and error. Just made a custom scene to do it in, and I got to work in them pretty well, I think. And I still have a lot of work to do with that. But here's just a showcase of my like, what is that? Like probably 15 bone arm I just created. I'm not using Blender models. I'm literally just creating cubes and then modifying their scale and size and everything and position. And yeah, I think this turned out pretty well. It's, as you can see, it's a little buggy, but that's just the inverse kinematics algorithm. And so then Next, I created a body for the monster, and as you can guess, this is completely destructible. I just used the same isometric space thing, as this is just a function as well. And those red lines you see there, those are some spawn points. I also reused my spawn point algorithm to generate the positions where I want to attach the legs. And so then I started getting to work actually applying the inverse schematics and everything, and this was way harder than I thought. I spent so much time because I really made this way more challenging for myself than I needed to, because instead of starting from the ground up and like creating legs, attaching them to the body, everything here was created at runtime. So the body, the legs, the position of the legs and everything is all created at runtime. So I can't really verify where the issue. I couldn't really verify where the issue was, because I didn't know whether the order of the legs was incorrect or just the positioning of the legs was faulty. And yeah, I got a bunch of weird errors here because I was trying to adjust the scale. I was trying to adjust the height and the rotation of the body based on the leg positions. And yeah, I mean, this was a really weird error, but there was plenty of errors where it just didn't work at all. And so finally, I got something very workable, and I was very proud of this. And it, fully adjusts for the body, so the body can be at any rotation, any direction, and the legs just adapt accordingly. And it even has a little like smart sensor where when it gets up to a wall, it kind of looks up and prepares to climb the wall. And so yeah, I was really happy about this, and I'm going to add even more functionality to the movement, because there are a couple cases like that, for example, where it's a little unrealistic, but he's still very functionable in the world, and it looks really amazing, I think. And so then I figured, well, I've got this guy, he can traverse an environment, so let's throw him in. So I threw him into the world, and this is basically where I'm currently at in the game. And so I just kept all that post-processing on there, but now, I'm sorry for that poor quality, but there we go. He kind of submerges from the ground, and a couple little lag spikes with that inverse schematics, but yeah, he's fully walking. I have the poles directly above his head, so that's why his knees kind of look like they bend in. But yeah, he noticed the leg positioning is all pretty accurate, pretty happy about that, and the body rotation and scale and everything bends accordingly. And so yeah, next up I'm probably going to add a bunch more functionality to the monster, because I'm really hoping that he will have a kind of almost ecosystem-like behavior. And I want monsters to attack monsters. I want the player to kind of feel like they're just in this ecosystem that they can just choose to participate in, or they can just observe in. And I want the player to feel like the world still exists without them in it, so that it really gives you this immersion. And yeah, I'm probably going to keep working on the monster, fix these bugs like you see here, because the monster's body doesn't have, yeah, there we go. The monster's body doesn't have any collision on it, so you can get some pretty bad bugs. But I will fix all that, hopefully give the monster a little bit more personality, and hopefully make another video for you guys. So thanks for watching.